The Boy and the Apple Tree. Once upon a time, in a peaceful village nestled between rolling hills and dense forests, there stood an old, majestic apple tree. This tree had been planted many, many years ago by a kind-hearted farmer who loved to watch it grow. The tree had grown strong and tall, with branches that stretched wide and leaves that rustled in the wind, providing shade and shelter to all who came near. Its apples were sweet and juicy, and each year, the tree produced an abundant harvest. People from the village often visited the tree to enjoy its fruit, and children played beneath its boughs. But the most special bond the tree had was with a young boy named Peter. Peter was an orphan who lived with his grandmother in a small cottage at the edge of the village. His grandmother was loving, but she was elderly and couldn't always keep up with the boy's boundless energy. So Peter often wandered out to the orchard to play, where he could run freely and explore the world around him. And it was under the shade of the apple tree that Peter spent most of his days, playing, laughing, and talking to the tree as though it were his closest friend. As a small child, Peter would often sit beneath the tree's branches and gaze up at the apples hanging high above him. He marveled at their bright red color and longed to taste one. He would stretch his tiny arms, trying to reach for the apples, but they were always too high for him to grab. The tree, seeing Peter's longing, would bend its branches low so that Peter could pick the juiciest apples. The boy would laugh with joy, biting into the sweet fruit and sharing it with the tree. The tree loved Peter dearly and was happy to provide him with apples, knowing that the boy was full of innocence and wonder. Over the years, Peter grew taller, and so did the tree. As he grew, Peter spent less time with the tree, though he would still visit from time to time, sitting in its shade and talking to it. One day, as Peter reached his teenage years, he returned to the tree with a heavy heart. He had grown more interested in other things, his friends, his dreams, and his future. The carefree days of childhood were behind him, and Peter had become preoccupied with the pressures of growing up. The apple tree, as always, greeted him with its branches swaying gently in the wind. "Peter," the tree called softly, "come sit with me. It has been so long since you last visited." Peter stood beneath the tree, gazing up at its boughs, and then he spoke with a sigh. "I am busy now, tree. I need to work. I want to build my future, and I need to make money. I don't have time to sit under your branches and talk anymore." The tree, ever so patient, said, "But Peter, you have spent many happy hours here with me. I've given you my apples, and I've provided you with shade. Surely, there is something I can do for you now." Peter looked up at the apples hanging above him, remembering how the tree had once given him everything he wanted. "I don't need apples anymore. I want more than that," he replied. "I need money. I need to build something for myself. Do you think you can help me with that?" The tree paused for a moment, and then it said, "I have branches. I can bend them down for you. If you take my branches, you could sell them to build what you need." Peter thought about it for a moment and nodded. "Yes, that will work. I will take your branches." And so, with great effort, Peter began cutting off the tree's branches one by one, leaving the tree bare. As he carried the branches away, he thanked the tree, but didn't look back. The tree stood silent, its limbs heavy with the sacrifice it had made, but it was happy to have helped Peter. Years went by, and Peter became successful. He built a great house, started a family, and established himself as a prosperous man. But as he grew older, he became more consumed with work, wealth, and responsibilities. The more Peter had, the more he wanted. One day, he returned to the place where the apple tree once stood. There, in its place, was a stump bare and lifeless. Peter stood still for a moment, realizing that the tree was no longer there to greet him with its branches and apples. He felt a wave of guilt wash over him. In his pursuit of success, he had taken everything from the tree. The branches, the apples, and even the time they once spent together. Now there was nothing left but the stump. Suddenly, a soft voice seemed to come from the stump. "Peter," it said gently, "I may not have apples or branches to give you now, but I still have something I can offer. You see, I've always been here for you from the day you were a small boy, and I am still here. I have given all that I had to help you grow, and I'm happy to see you have everything you wanted." Peter knelt down by the stump, his heart heavy with regret. "I'm so sorry," he whispered. "I took everything from you, and now you are just a stump. I was so focused on myself that I didn't realize how much you had given me." The stump, now little more than a memory of the great tree that had once stood there, responded, "Peter, the apples and the branches were never the most important thing. It was the love and care that I gave you, the time we spent together, and the lessons you learned from me. Those are the things that matter most. I have nothing left to give you now, but the wisdom you gained from me will stay with you forever." Tears filled Peter's eyes as he realized the truth of the tree's words. All the material wealth he had gained could not replace the deep connection he once had with the apple tree. He had taken without thinking, and now he felt the emptiness of that greed. The tree had always been there, patient and generous, giving him everything it could, without asking for anything in return. Peter sat down beside the stump, reflecting on the years that had passed. He had gained so much, but in the process he had lost what truly mattered: his connection with nature, his childhood, and the simple pleasures of life. As he sat there, he made a promise to himself. He would spend more time with those he loved. He would appreciate the things he once took for granted, and he would find balance between his work and the things that brought him joy. And so, even though the apple tree was gone, its lessons lived on in Peter's heart. From that day forward, he shared his wealth, his time, and his love with those who needed it. He never forgot the tree that had given him everything it had, and in its absence, he learned the greatest lesson of all: that true happiness comes not from what we take, but from what we give. The end. Moral of the story. The story of the boy and the apple tree teaches us about the importance of appreciating what we have while we have it. It reminds us that true wealth is not found in material things, but in love, kindness, and the time we spend with the people and things we cherish. It also shows us that selfishness can lead to regret, and that we must be mindful of what we take from others and how we use it.